Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Saturday. It's Daryl here. It's bright and freaking early, man. It's 6 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. This is one of those videos that I hadn't quite planned on making, but I've been seeing more news stories pop up having to do with Rick Harrison. And, oh, you gotta be freaking kidding me. Okay, I'm just gonna keep going. The Rick Harrison story. I've seen a couple more news stories pop up. I talked about this briefly, and this I try not to make this political. It bothers me being in recovery. The tone that Rick Harrison, he recently lost Adam, his son, 39 years old, to an overdose. And I know I don't want to come across as insensitive and just using politics and beating up on this guy because of my political agenda, but there's more to it than that. I came up with an analogy that I think is very accurate. Okay, the links will be down below. Like I said, I did a video talking about how Rick Harrison came forward and said how his son OD'd. And now there's been two more stories on TMZ. This one is kind of politically tasting. It's got to do with Eric Trump and Don Jr. Apparently, Trump's sons called up Rick Harrison to, give their condolences. I didn't know Rick Harrison considers himself a Trump guy. That's made me lose a little respect for him, but that's neither here nor there. Another story that just came out in the last day or two, Rick Harrison, link will be right down below. Rick Harrison talks about how he admits that his son, Adam, was in jail recently before losing him, before the OD. And like I said, the link will be down below to this. And this kind of makes my point too. Like I said, I'm not trying to beat up on this, but there's a reason. I think taking this tone that it's all because of the southern border and supposedly because of fentanyl flowing freely over the southern border, that it's the whole reason that he lost his son. And it bothers me for the reason that it's taking away one of the main tools for addicts trying to get into recovery. The tool of taking responsibility, owning up. Like when I go to NA meetings and AA meetings, I still go to. First thing I say is, I am Daryl P, and I'm an addict and alcoholic. Owning up to what I am, acknowledging my disease. And that's one of the main reasons that I've succeeded in recovery. I thought of this analogy. Okay, stick with me here. I've been clean and sober since 2006. Now, I was drinking and using cocaine and crack since I was in my early 20s. The heroin didn't start until probably about 1999, 1998. I got cross-addicted to heroin. And when I was using heroin back in 2001, after the whole September 12th, was it? Yeah, it was September 12th. September 12th, I almost forgot the date. I'm sorry. With the World Trade Center and to Taliban and everything like that. I actually, because the source of what I was using was coming from the opiate triangle out in Afghanistan, the main, almost, everything that I was using. I actually felt guilty back then because I felt like my money was going to the Taliban. When I used in 2020, 2001, 2002, 2003, I really had a sense of guilt that my money was going to the Taliban. Now, here's the analogy. What if instead of acknowledging that, hi, I'm Daryl P, I'm an addict, alcoholic, and the reasons, acknowledging why, how this disease started with me and everything like that. What if I said, what, it's the Taliban's fault. If it wasn't for what if my parents came forward, and said, Daryl's a good guy. I worked for architects and everything like that. And I never would have had problems if it wasn't for the Taliban, sending this stuff here and poisoning American citizens like good old Daryl. It's their fault. What if I took that route? It would have taken away one of the main tools for my recovery. The main tools is acknowledging your responsibility, owning up to what you did. And see, this relates to Adam. Like I said, I'm not trying to be insensitive here. But the fact that he was already in jail, and the issues before this, to me it looks like he was just like me and thousands of other people that have the disease of addiction. The fentanyl probably sped up the whole process. With me, this is the thing with heroin. Once I got addicted to it, the end result, if you keep using, is jail, death, or recovery. Those are your three options. That will be the outcome. Like they say, you'll never see an old heroin addict or an old fentanyl addict. Once I became a heroin addict, I could not lie to myself anymore. Seeing, every morning throwing up into the toilet and everything else that came with it, I had to acknowledge, that I was badly addicted and I couldn't stop at that point. But up till then, I was still lying to myself. So it really brings you to a point where you either give up hope and resign yourself to passing away, or you get into recovery and you own up to your disease. It's your responsibility. Like I said, it's not like people from south of the border, in Mexico or in China, twisted Adam's arm, Rick Harrison's son. I'm sure he was just like me. He actively probably sought out this drug, and even in the first time he ever used it, willing to beg, borrow, or steal just to get this drug. And to paint it in another fashion, it's easy to have a boogeyman, just to say that, it's easy to blame, the Taliban with me, something like that, or to blame, the people, Mexicans or cartels or whatever. It's easy to blame them, but you're taking away one of the main tools that helped me get into recovery, was taking responsibility, owning up, and understanding my addiction, understanding why I started it in the first place, taking responsibility and getting the big picture. That's what led to my 17 years of successful recovery and abstinence is owning up to this. And I feel like Rick Harrison, people like him, a lot of people on the right, aren't doing people with drug problems, aren't doing them a favor by placing the blame on the cartel. I mean, the cartel is supplying where there's a supply, there's a demand. If there wasn't a demand, if there wasn't so many Americans waving around wads of cash, there wouldn't be such a problem. And that is because, and it's not because they're bad people, it's because of addiction. That's the whole point of this. And, it's easy to blame it. It feels good not to, for your family. Like I said before in another video, to this day, I still have to correct my family members sometimes, because they tend to blame the doctor before I had back surgery with OxyContin and Vicodin. I've heard my family members still lately saying, well, if it wasn't for those damn doctors prescribing, Vicodin, Daryl would be, this would have never happened, and that's just not true. It's a nice fantasy to have in your head that, somebody else did this to me, but it's not true. You have to own up and take responsibility, and especially realize the disease of addiction. Hi, I'm Daryl P. I'm a recovering addict and alcoholic, and that's the truth. Clean and sober since October 23rd, 2006. The links will be down below. I don't know what the hell happened with... I'm going to have to talk about this. The painting, I noticed something in yesterday's video, an envelope. I don't know what's going on. Have a good Saturday.